Okay, so now just to review, satellite photo, advertising is multiplied salesmanship, and 2 parts of salesmanship: how to open the sale and then how to close the sale. And we've seen the best way to open the sale is to make your advertising valuable so that it survives that first toss away. Now we're going to start getting more advanced. I have a picture up here. It's a famous painting of the Tower of Babel. And this is really where advertising is today. As I mentioned, there are probably 1,000 ad agencies within a couple of miles of where we are right now. And if you were to ask the head of each one, what is good advertising, you'd probably get 1,000 different answers. As I said before, there was a time in my copywriting career where it all came together for me with the help of other people, where we were running a small ad agency. I'll go into this more later, where we wanted to end this problem. I worked my way up to become a copy chief, and the business was doing very well, the little ad agency, and I had to hire other people. And I had to come up with a way, other copywriters, I had to come up with a way to teach copywriters how to think. I didn't have my thinking as well formulated as I expressed this morning about how to think like the prospect and not like a marketer. But over time, the system that I helped to form there and have refined over these last years has really made that possible. And this is a system that I would like to teach you now. And in fact, I call it the Bencivenga persuasion equation. And in fact, if I were to ask you, how many people here would be interested in knowing a very simple 4-part formula for knowing how to be in perfect sync with your best prospects? And also the same 4-point formula would allow anybody in your organization, whether they're a designer or a writer or marketing manager, that they too would be able to make very valuable contributions to the advertising, if you would be interested in that. And also how it could be very simple for you with mathematical precision to grade any direct marketing ad and be very close to how it's going to pull. How many would like to know that? Okay, well, look, I kind of expected that response. In fact, I'm using this Bencivenga persuasion equation now with you. And notice I didn't say on you, because all persuasion really begins with the person that you're trying to help or sell something to or serve. It all starts with what the person wants. So many times I've seen marketers go wrong in trying to sell something because they want to sell it, not because anybody wants to buy it. And that's, again, thinking like a marketer, not like a prospect. It's like the great Dale Carnegie said, when he goes fishing, he loves strawberry shortcake, but if he puts that on the end of his line, the fish likes something else. So we always have to be aware of what our prospects want. In fact, probably one of the most persuasive people of the 20th century was Bernard Baruch. Many people here may have heard of him. He was a great financier, Wall Street titan, and he was an advisor to 6 presidents. Bernard Baruch had the unique ability, he would be able to walk into any room, and you can imagine on Wall Street and down in Washington, there are egos that have trouble getting in through the front door. He could talk to a group of people like that, and 20 minutes, a half hour later, everyone will come out of the meeting and say, Bernard Baruch has a solution. He's made us all happy with it, and he's going to explain it. And he was just brilliant at persuading others to see his point of view. And so at the end of his career, toward the end of his life, somebody said, Mr. Baruch, what is your secret? Is that something that the rest of us can learn how to do? And he said to that person a 12-word sentence, which I'm going to share with you now, which is the heart of all persuasion, whether it's in print, in person, or whatever. Those 12 words are 12 words for marketers to live by. Find out what people want and show them how to get it. Because that's how he would persuade those big egos in the room. He would say to sit down with each one, look, your bottom line, what is it you're trying to get out of this deal? And they would say it. Then we go to the next person. And then we figure out a way, well, look, there's a way we can make all of these things happen, and they'd have a deal. So this is the foundation of all persuasion. And we're going to be getting into this 4-part formula for great persuasion of thinking. Now, this doesn't teach you right now how to write great ads or design great ads. That'll come later. The most important point that we want to know now is how to be in perfect sync with what our prospects want. Because too often as marketers, thinking as the fisherman, not as the fish, we do what we think will work, and we're looking at it totally through our end of the telescope, not through the prospect's end. So first and foremost, we want to find out what people want and then show them how to get it. Now you think this would be obvious, but advertising, like any field, can get caught up in a lot of jargon. Psychographics, demographics, all kinds of relationship marketing. I feel that problems are markets. Problems, and when I say problems, I mean problems, wants, needs, desires. I'm lumping them all together, and just in a shorthand, calling it problems. I know some people in selling and in advertising say, well, you've got to sell what people want, not what they really need. And to me, that's sort of a semantic difference. And just, again, to keep everything simple, my mom last week had fainted, and we took her to the hospital, and she needed a pacemaker put in. Thank goodness she's fine now. But I'll tell you, she had that procedure, and there were other people in that hospital who were scheduled to have their chest cut open and their arteries worked on, not because they wanted it, but they were lining up to have that done because they needed it. So to me, it's of course they want to live. So it's to make a big distinction between needs and wants, to me, is a semantic difference. So we're going to just call everybody's wants problems. So we want to find what the biggest problems are for the people that we want to serve. I take an aspirin only if I have a headache. You can be the most brilliant copywriter in the world. You're not going to convince me to take an aspirin if I don't have a headache. So that's how you have to think of your prospects. You find those with the greatest need and who really need what you offer. Don't waste your time trying to offer something to people that you have to educate or coax or in any way persuade who don't have a need or want for what you're offering. You'll waste a lot of time, a lot of money doing that. So problems are markets, not demographics. I take an aspirin when I have a headache, not because I want a relationship with my druggist. I don't do anything unless I have a want or a desire. And you would think, well, this is so obvious. It's not really obvious because so many of our lives we spend being the marketer and not looking at it through the prospect's eyes. Classic example is the Edsel. In the 1950s, poor Edsel Ford got one of the greatest failures in marketing history named after him and probably had never lived it down. But the Ford Edsel was something that was a problem, actually. The foundation for it was that Ford had a big problem in the middle of its product line. A lot of people, ever since the days of the Model T, that when you buy your entry car, a lot of people would buy a Ford. When you really started doing well in your career, you would buy a Lincoln Continental. But they were losing a lot of sales in between to General Motors, who had lots of different models in the middle stages. So the bright lights at Ford, including a lot of Harvard MBAs and brilliant marketing people, said, we've got to solve this problem. And the Edsel was the answer to this problem. The problem was they spent $350 million in 1950s money. So it's got to be worth at least 10 times that today. So they spent an incredible $3.5 billion launching this product. And then they found nobody wants it. Because what the problem was that their automobile buyers weren't waking up in the morning saying, my goodness, I am so worried about the middle of Ford products line. I don't know how I'm going to get through this day. So it was a big problem inside the Ford building. Nobody could care less outside the Ford building. So that classic example could show that even the best and brightest can fall into this trap of trying to sell something because they want to sell it, not because people want to buy it. Here's the formula. It's a basic form. It starts with what the problem, want, or desire. The advertiser or salesperson makes a promise to solve that or fulfill that promise, the problem, want, or desire. And if you touch these four bases that I'm going to walk through now, starts with a real problem, want, or need. The advertiser makes a promise to satisfy it. You provide proof that you are solving the problem in a way that's believable. And then base number 4 is that you give it a proposition for acting now, and you have persuasion. It's as simple as that. Truly as simple as that. So now, we talked before about how to open the sale. Now we're into the phase of how to close the sale. Applying salesmanship and advertising, we open the sale, making the advertising itself valuable. Now here's the second part of what we do. Now we're into how do you close a sale. You start with what somebody wants, You promise to solve the problem. You prove that you can deliver on what you're promising. You make an irresistible proposition. Sale is done. In fact, we can crank it up, just as Emerald would say, let's kick it up a notch. You'll really get outstanding results if you solve an urgent problem. If your promise is unique, it's not the same promise that many other people are making. We'll see weight loss ads. So many of them seem alike. And people will screen out the ones that they've seen 100 times because it's not unique. So if we really want to crank up this formula to the max, we want to solve an urgent problem that a marketplace is feeling. We want to offer that marketplace a unique promise. We want to offer unquestionable proof. And you can have any adjectives and nouns you want to choose. I just chose the adjective with a U, so it sounds a little more easy to remember, and the noun with a P. But and then we want to offer a user-friendly proposition, why they should act now, and it's really easy to take up the offer. Now, this is so important because we have to remember that in multiplied salesmanship, you really don't have any power. People say, well, what are the most powerful words in advertising, the most powerful things you can do? Again, it's thinking like a marketer. You have no power. If you're talking anonymously to 1 million people at once, each one of those people has the total power to toss your ad or ignore it, run to the fridge, whatever they want to do. You have no direct power in that situation except for one, and that is to anticipate what they are likely to think at each point from the moment of when you introduce that you're trying to solve a problem in their lives. So now we are finally coming full circle to really what is good salesmanship. Again, we opened the sale with something of value so that people aren't tossing us away immediately. And now we have the other key components of closing the sale. Because if we think of salesmanship, really it's a science of anticipating the prospect's objections. So let me just put up a slide here. The 5 universal objections that every salesperson will encounter, no matter what they're selling in print or in person. Well, I have no time. I'm just too busy. I don't want to enter a sales dialogue right now. And so, okay, we said with our value offer, make your advertising sell valuable, we've counted that move now. I have no time. I'm too busy. Oh, wait a minute. A little black book. Well, I can't throw that away. So, okay, so no time is now taken care of. The rest of the 4, 2 through 5, are going to be done now by our closing procedure. So we've opened the sale by getting somebody to not run away because they have no time. Okay, so then the next step is no interest. And if you do manage to convince them that it's interesting, well, what you're offering is no different than what everybody else, so I'm out of here. And so you have to anticipate that objection. Number 4 objection, this pretty much goes in sequence in a person's mind. Well, okay, you got me to pay attention, but I really didn't think I had an interest. Okay, it is solving a major issue in my life for me, or giving me something I'd really like to have or do or be. Okay, but a lot of people promise, oh, okay, you're giving me how you are different. Well, I don't know if I can believe you, so now that's the next objection you have to anticipate and solve. And then finally, well, no decision, let me think it over, and then your offer does that. So let's see how all these match up now. Because what we're doing is, as a salesperson, in a much more sophisticated way than the timid salespeople who didn't want to have skinny kids and try to manipulate you with psychological pressure, we're doing this now in a multiplied way where you're not even on the scene. You're anticipating their next move and closing off what I would call the exits of escape. How your prospects, we're all busy. We're all prospects also. How often do we have to escape from a sales situation that we just don't want to deal with right now? So these are the 5 major objections, or in effect 5 major exits of escape that your prospects always will run for. And what you're going to do is you're going to lock the door at each exit, so that a person has no time to deal with this now. Oh, wait a minute. This is a crackerjack prize in this direct mail package. It's something extremely valuable. I can't use that excuse. Right, well, let me just get that, and then I'll be on my way. Oh, because I have no interest, really, in buying anything. Well, no, it's kind of addressing an urgent problem or want or desire I have in my life. All right. But, this is just another sales pitch. No different from, oh, there's a unique promise. I never saw that one before. But, how can I believe it? Wow, look at this proof. This is amazing. And then, let me think it over. And then the proposition says, no, you can't think it over. If you act by a certain date or only a certain number of people are going to take advantage of this, you're closing off all the 5 avenues of escape that every salesperson has to put up with, or to which they're losing their customers. This is so simple that even a child can do it. And I'm going to show you how. Let's say that you and I have just, in a month or so, have been let off for the summer, and we're not going to go to camp. We're good buddies. We live next door to each other. We're 8 years old, 9 years old, and we're sitting on your front porch. We say, what are we going to do for the summer? It's long summer, and what can we do? So he said, well, it would be nice to make some money. So a lemonade stand, that's so yesterday. And nobody buys lemonade today. They're all in Atkins in this town. What are we going to do? And so we say, the lake is very popular with fishermen, getting back to this fishing analogy. Why don't we try to sell them worms? We know where to dig up the worms. Every fall, the sanitation department dumps tons of leaves collected from the town into the end of the park, and those leaves become fertilizer for worms. And we can dig up hundreds of worms over there, so our product is free. So why don't we dig up some worms, and on Saturday morning, when many of the fishermen come to the lake to launch their boats, we'll sell them boxes of worms. We'll get little cannoli boxes from the bakery and sell them worms. So yeah, it's worth a try. We're not doing anything else. So we do that, and we need an advertising campaign now. So just being kids, we hire Gary Bencivenga to do the art, and this is what they wind up with. And so we put out our little sign, and it says worms, and we sell, a fair number of boxes. We make a few bucks, and we think that we could be doing better. I mean, as it is, this is probably a better ad than half of the Fortune 500 are running on TV. Have you ever noticed that? What were they just trying to sell me or tell me or do what? What was that about? And that's if you're even paying attention to that ad. So we ambushed Johnny's dad on the way home from the train because we know he works on Madison Avenue, and we meet him at the train station, and we say, Mr. Jones, we're trying to build a little business here for the summer. Here's our ad. Can you make this better? And he said, well, I like your entrepreneurial spirit. Let me take a look. And he said, it's nice that you're saying what the product is, but good advertising should have a benefit. You should think of who your prospects are. And so we go back with our crayons, or hire Gary again, and once again, the artwork is stellar. And we come up with worms that catch fish. And Johnny's dad said, that's the ticket. And so we go down to the lake again on Saturday morning, and we do see an increase in sales. But we see a lot of people a lot of fishermen just look at our sign and kind of smile at our business spirit, but they don't buy. And we don't know why. We did a little bit better than last week, but we heard that Patricia's mom is a great saleswoman. So we take our ad campaign to her on Monday. And we say, Mrs. Smith, can you help us here? Because we thought this was such a great headline. This is where most advertisers who really think they know what they're doing are. Just put a big benefit in a headline for the right market, and that's what good advertising is. So she tells us, I just got back from this persuasion equation seminar. I have to tell you, that's not enough. She said, you're missing 2 other steps. You're missing proof. And so we said, what do you mean proof? He said, well, really, that's just a claim. And people are bombarded by thousands of claims a day, and they just write them off. It's like water off a duck's back. So that's good in the old days of advertising, but not today. That's not good enough in today's market, where the biggest enemy is clutter, and promises hit us from every direction. So you have to get some proof. And so our kids say, well, how do I prove that these worms catch fish? So where did you get the worm? The key to proof is deeper research. And so she said, look, there's some old-time fishermen down where you kids dig up the leaves. Ask them, why do they find their worms there? They'll give you some. I'm sure they know the lake better than anybody. And so we decided to do that. So we go down and we visit the old-timers who dig up their worms every Friday. And we said, we're trying to get a little business going. Can you guys tell us, why do you dig up your worms here? And they say, and one of the old-timers might say to us, well, look, I admire your entrepreneurial spirit. Let me tell you something. Fish, like most animals, are very wary, like most people. And if something's very unfamiliar to them, they back off. Now, these are the worms that these fish eat all the time. You know, every time it rains, a lot of the worms get washed into the lake, and that's their diet. They're not wary of these worms. This is what's familiar to them. So these worms really do catch more fish, and my buddies and I have a bunch of photos. In fact, if you want to have our photos of the fish we caught with worms right from this spot, I'll let you have those. You'll have a good campaign. So we get so excited, and when we do the next, we take that, we get the sign ready for our next campaign, next Saturday's campaign. Now incorporating a reason why. Tremendous difference. Now we see a quantum leap in our persuasive power. We have a sign that now says local worms catch more fish. And now we notice that when the fishermen come down to the lake, they say, you know, kids, what's this all about? And our sales pitch becomes just what the research told us, that these fish love these local worms. That's what they eat normally, and so you can't get any better diet than that on your fish hook. And you see the fish that were caught. We got these pictures from the old timers who used the worms that we're selling you from the same place to catch these big, beautiful fish. But notice the tremendous difference in selling power between, even if that had been a photo, worms that catch fish, just a claim, but even direct marketing is at this level today. What it's really needed because so many people use that next exit of escape, it's not believable. I mean, if promises were gold, all politicians would be fabulously wealthy, and we'd all love them. You know, we hold them in high disregard because promises are so cheap without proof. We are held in the same way when all we do is make promises. So now we went from local worms to catch more fish, and we go back to Patricia's mom with the exciting news. She's the one who came to the seminar, and tell her that, boy, that made some difference in sales. And she says, well, you forgot the last step. You have to have a proposition. Oh, okay, well, let's do that. So now we have a killer ad. Local worms catch more fish, only $2 per box of a dozen. Buy 3 boxes for just $5 and get a free secret map of the lake's best fishing holes. Okay? So now you can just imagine, as all of these exits now that prospects normally run out of, how we've kind of done a pretty good job of sealing them off. Just picture what's happening. Our fisherman is coming down to the lake. He's got his $15,000 bass boat hooked up to his $30,000 SUV. He's got all kinds of paraphernalia, fish finders, depth finders, temperature gauges, and he's a high-tech fisherman. And he sees our sign. Is he going to begrudge us $5? No, it's not. The price resistance will go right out the window when you meet all 4 of those. If you close off all 4 of those exits that prospects normally run out of: problem, promise, proof, and proposition. So we've done that here, and notice that this is not brilliant copywriting. I mean, most ads are win or lose not by the eloquence of the words, but just the psychology that you map out that matches up how your prospects are going to behave. Remember, the only power you have in the transaction is anticipating their next move. And it's always going to be for another objection unless you cover every objection in the fourfold way. And something else very interesting happens, that price resistance goes out the window. One great salesman that I worked with many years ago said price is a funny thing. When people say that too expensive, what they're really saying to you is that you haven't given me enough benefit yet. And all the benefits that we've just mapped out in our persuasion equation with the worms, they're putting tremendous benefit and desire on one side of that apothecary scale. It means that you can throw a heavy price on the other side until they balance out. Just as I mentioned, with the bass boat and everything, he is not going to, I mean, after all, he spent so much money, but he's going to bring home fish, and the cost is only about $2,000 a pound, so he's really getting a bargain for all of this investment. So he's not going to worry about us charging $5 and $10, and maybe we don't even want to dig up worms anymore. Maybe we just want to sell the secret map of the lake and then branch out into an informational business. But this is what they wind up with. You can see that as the desire goes up, the price resistance goes down. I mean, you can equalize them. So the more you create desire and proof and a proposition with the promise that you're making, the higher price you can charge. In fact, you can even assign a value to each of these 4 key concepts. Actually 8 when you count all the words. Very simply, when you are asked to judge a piece of copy, an ad, and I think even in this room, if we were to hand out ads to each one of you, we'd get probably 100 different opinions on whether an ad is really good or not. I mean, the straw man cases, the one that are really weak, we'd all probably recognize, but the other ones might give us a lot of different opinion. This brings all those opinions very close together. So if you're a copy chief or an art director or just an entrepreneur and you want to know, is this ad any good or not? Just ask, and you see how simple it is. Is it solving a problem? Is it, if it is, for our audience, or want or desire, give it 15 points. If it's solving or satisfying an urgent want or problem or desire, well, add another 10. And the same all the way through the list. Is it clearly making the promise? Is it doing it in a unique way? Give another 25 points. Is there strong proof? Give it 15 points. If it's really unquestionable, kind of proof that makes me say, wow, I really have to, it's so believable, I have to see what this is all about and purchase it, add another 10. And so on for proposition and a user-friendly proposition, making it very desirable. And then if the ad also used that, what we first said, opening the sale, the crackerjack secret, it's itself valuable so that we prevented the first objection. I have no time for this right now. Well, it's too valuable to not give it time. Give it a 20-point bonus. So this adds up to 120 points. And the system that we created back when I was a copy chief really focused on those. We didn't, at that time, realize how valuable it was to do editorial-style layouts and magalogs. So this was the... above the 20-point bonus, that was at that time how you can grade any ad. It's so simple. You don't have to. It's not rocket science. Is the ad solving a problem? Is it an urgent problem? And go through the whole list. And you'll very quickly see that 95% of the ads you'll see in any magazine. In fact, we have time tomorrow. You can do an experiment. Anybody rip out an ad, even a good direct response ad will run through these points, and you don't have to need a slide rule or anything complicated. Just ask these simple questions, because these are the questions your prospects are asking as they encounter anything that you're presenting in front of them. So again, it doesn't teach you how to write, but at this point, I just want everybody on the same page. Is how do we evaluate? Because again, using that Zen master philosophy, you have to see the target if you're going to hit the target. Anybody can apply this, whether you're writing or not. It doesn't tell you how to create a unique promise. That will come later this afternoon. But it does let you know if what is sitting in front of you is a good piece of copy and art or not.